grand. Travel, draw, and let's take a stand. Thoughts come alive, flowing through the pen. With every stroke, we create, we mend. The conversations play. A bond we defend, dream on, draw us to it again. And beyond we share as we draw, we connect the love affair. Sketching dreams without a single care. Drive over the tether, every share. As we draw, we connect the land. A love affair, sketching dreams without a single care. Travel, draw together we dare. Chatter and scribble, my pencils in hand as we draw. We chat, it's a wonderland. Colors collide, imagination so grand. Travel, draw, and let's take a stand. Thoughts come alive, flowing through the pen. With every stroke, we create, we.
And we are live! And welcome, Pokeball! Thank you for joining in chat! Even if it's just a little before we got it going. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the hashtag that's been going around over the last 24 hours of RIP Cartoon Network. We're going to talk a little bit about Cartoon Network coming up. I'm actually gonna, actually not going to try to read it, but it's like really behind it. But I heard about this hashtag. Yeah. First and foremost, the network is not dead yet. And we have to use yet. This has been something going on slowly over the last almost 5 years now, that a lot of people in the industry are kind of understanding that HBO Max, Discovery, whoever owns it these days, I believe it's Discovery Max, they're gonna kill off Cartoon Network. They slowly are. And that's gonna be the issue. We're gonna talk over why they're doing it and how they're doing it and how we know it's bringing an end to the network of over 30 years of cartoons. And I've been watching them mostly through the 30 years. There've been some breaks for me with them, but I was there when they started. I was a teenager when they got started, and now, yeah, I'm not surprised with what they're doing, because they want to push people to Max for most of the part. They want to kind of make it so all the content goes to Max, and it's because cable is pretty much dying. We're getting to a point where there will be some people still having cable, but it's gonna be rare. People are going towards streaming over cable and things. Yeah, Warner Brothers trying to kill Coyote versus Acme, Rejected Learning with Pilby, but they green light Velma despite overwhelming it. Yeah, Velma was a mess. And yes, they're killing the Wile E. Coyote movie, but from what I understand, it wasn't a good movie to begin with. the major draw was Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner, and John Cena. And they spent money in making it, but I don't think it's been going well with test audiences. With what they have. So it's pretty much been scrapped. But I mean, it's not alone. It's Cartoon Network's lineup has killed itself. I mean, it was rough when I started watching it, which was when it came out. I remember coming on, we pretty much would get a lot of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, some Bugs Bunny cartoons, and then a few of the cartoons, particularly Dexter and Johnny Bravo at the time. Those were the two that pretty much started the network. Powerpuff Girls came a little bit later to be their big hit. But that, and what locked me in wasn't Dexter's or Johnny, but I love both. It was another show they put on at night, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I was old enough to enjoy the humor that was in the talk show, and also to remember reruns of Space Ghost, which was as a series. A lot of Hanna-Barbera 60s to 80s cartoons that weren't like the Flintstones or Scooby-Doo, or just kind of like Cartoon Network is bringing back a regular show. Gumball and Adventure Time. Yes, we're going to cover a little bit what they're going to be bringing back. And some creators of the past with them, not a fan. The bigger issue is not so much the new content or the re-release of contact. Hi, Easy Yoshi. Hey, how's it going? They're trying to superpass animators. They're trying to get AI created cartoons. Because it's cheaper, frankly. Making cartoons in general is a very, very expensive task. And the more detail, the more hard work you put in our cartoon, it's a lot of money. So, Cartoon Network is kind of like, we need something that'll be cheaper and probably cover up some, little hashtags they're trying to go through. Recently, in the last 3 years, they've discovered in their, focus groups, that teenagers weren't really a sell. So they wanted to focus on younger audiences. To the point now they're either toddler audience or adult audiences for the later program. And a lot of that is still being heard because they still have to follow SEC guidelines with anything that goes on the air live. Now, on the app, hell no. On the app, they can have at it. But there's certain things they cannot physically air if they go too adult with it. And in a way, they're killing their long-term audience by trying to focus more on younger audiences. But the younger audiences tend to buy, or well, their parents tend to buy the advertisements, the products. So it's a really tough situation, and Cartoon Network alone is not feeling this. I mean, Disney is leading money. They're having some success with Inside Out, and they'll have success with Deadpool versus Wolverine. But Disney is billions in the red this year. They made over $1 billion with Inside Out internationally so far. So they're hoping to have that kind of success, but the lineup does not look good for Disney and their lineup. Warner Brothers, which is part of Cartoon Network, a great part of Cartoon Network, they have sort of their own issues, and their own issues isn't so much the movies or their releases there for that. It's their programming. A lot of people aren't going to HBO Max as they'd like, and part of that is cost and other acts. I mean, when you have multiple competitions for content, you really gotta draw on an audience. Oh my god. I think you got 2 audio sources open. I do, technically. Hold on, let me make sure. Let me drop the desktop there. Yeah. So, it's a mess that they've got, and we'll go over it, over the 2 hours of this stream. But yeah, I was there watching their programming when they launched back in the 90s, early 90s as I recall, is when they launched. And yeah, there wasn't, at the time, there really wasn't much programming but re-releases of old cartoons, with the exception of Johnny and Cow vs. Chicken, or Cow and Chicken, and Dexter's Lab. Those 3 and Cartoon kind of made the channel, and brought out a lot of notable animators of the time. I mean, you had Van Partible, you had Genndy Tartakovsky, you had Seth MacFarlane got his start there. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. And Craig McCracken. Craig McCracken got his start, and technically his wife, and I don't know why the name's slipping my brain right now, but the creator of My Little Pony: Friendship of Magic is Craig McCracken's wife, and she got her start also while Craig introduced the world to Powerpuff Girls, which was their first mega hit. With rightfully so. If you watch the 90s version of Powerpuff Girls, it was crass humor, but it was still enjoyable for children. And that's sort of what cartoons have always been. I mean, classic Bugs Bunny or any of the Hanna-Barbera. The exceptions would be like Mickey Mouse cartoons, and I mean the Mickey Mouse cartoons, not Goofy or Donald cartoons from Disney. They would be very adult humor, but also child humor. A lot of physical gags, but I mean, some gags that won't air anymore. Particularly some Bugs Bunny episodes that, yes, are very unacceptable to air these days, but are classic cartoons. I mean, we can't ignore, yes, times were different. And the humor was different. But I mean, hell, Johnny Bravo is such a beloved cartoon these days, and I'm amazed because there is no way it could be made these days. But in the 90s, hell, it was downright hilarious to watch. But there's no way you'd get some machismo, Elvis-like dude a cartoon show these days. Which is what Johnny Bravo was. And God love it, it was hilarious. I think one of the big problems they're suffering from isn't their fault. We've gotten a lot more sensitive these days into what is humorous. Which is why we have a lot of comedians these days having trouble getting anywhere, because if you get too crass with your humor, you're likely to turn off some group or piss off some group, and then you're never working again. And the same can be said with any show, TV show or cartoon. It's hard to get something like It's Always Sunny or a South Park these days. Something that is crass in its humor. You're not going to see too many. I mean, Rick and Morty, I was surprised that came out when it did. I don't know if it's going to succeed to continue and be decent, because you've taken Brolin out, and it's just... Or Harmon. You took Harmon out. And Harmon... Whichever one. Was it Brolin or Harmon? I don't remember which. That they canceled. And was proven later not to be true. And potentially destroyed one of Cartoon Network's profitable series. Something that it could be marketed. And ultimately, that is what a cartoon is. It's a marketable property. And it's been the way from pretty much the first comic strips. In the past, if you were go like before the 1900s, you'd have some cartoons, but they were more to promote news or tell a story. They weren't they weren't humorous, they weren't jokey. They were more, here's an advertisement, let's draw a cartoon for it. These days, that's rare. Mainly because of the cost. I mean, Hell of a Boss. I don't know how Hell of a Boss / Spin Hotel has succeeded. I really don't. I love them. They're great shows. But it's because the people who want that crass and dark humor go for it. And to add decent storytelling is also something that builds in and tells into that information. So let's actually hit the first article. I should not be that small here. Why am I being that small? There we go. So, like I said, they are not officially closing. But the whole problem is they're screwing over animators. So because they're screwing over animators, they're kind of destroying the talent of the company. If they were to just re-show all their classic stuff, all the way from Adventure Time to, of course, Steven Universe, even old cartoon episodes, or Flintstones, or any of this stuff that they used to do, they probably have a regular audience. But because they have to be so catchy on the sort of modes, or I don't want to say woke, but they have to be very protective of the humor they put on the show, and how they portray stuff. So a lot of these cartoons we're seeing in this very image here, almost every single one of them can't be made these days. I don't know why Ninja Turtles are up in this image. They were never really on Cartoon Network. Captain Planet, maybe. I mean, it was Turner owned, and Turner originally started Cartoon Network. But yeah, it's the concept of going to AI to create something. And I say that as we play AI generated music. A lot of the music we play, I still write the actual lines, the lyrics, and let the AI take over, because I can't perform. I suck at singing. And I don't know how to play an instrument to save my life. But I can let a computer take over it from where I lack. And it's the same with a lot of people. But we're not eliminating performers. We're not eliminating live musicians. But a cartoon can't be drawn live. To quote The Simpsons, it'd be a terrible strain on the wrist. And I mean, the same goes with comics. It's hard to get AI to tell a story that makes sense. And if you're gonna get an AI to make an animated show, I don't know if it's gonna work. But worse than that, you're putting out at least almost 100 people of work with one AI animated project. I mean, it's a lot of work to do some animation. I mean, you can have a smaller cast or a crew, but you're gonna be limited in time. A 30-minute show animated these days costs almost around $500,000 to make. It is not cheap. The way they usually make it cheaper is go with like key animation, where most of your work's going to be. You handle that by getting another country to do it. More often it's been Korea or Taiwan or India. It used to be Japan back in the day, but Japan is now doing it themselves the other way around. So they're sending it to Korea, they're sending it to China, stuff like that. You find where to cut costs. If an AI is only doing key animation, that's fine, because it saves some cost. But if it's doing all the animation, I mean, we'll go back to my comic work here. I could have an AI draw this very page out that I'm drawing as we speak, or I can do it myself. Now, AI is going to be glitchy, and they're going to not get things correct. Now, there are things that I'm already noticing that I need to fix. My arms are 2 different sizes. I need to fix that. I kind of want to do something a little bit different with her shirt and creative concept, and I'm building off of this. I mean, I take shortcuts. This is the school building up in the top here. I drew that out all the way back in issue 5, and I still use it. I just changed things around. This is the first time I'm showing it in rain, so I made dark clouds and rain falling as it goes on. But to get AI to do this, I'm not going to get the layout properly. I might not get a character drawn properly. As much as I'm glitching here with Mai's arm a little bit, I know how I want the characters in here to draw. You may not see them, but I mean, this is... Let me get a dark tone here. So, this is Mai holding the same pose there. This is Tetsu's friend, Sarah, and this is Tetsu. So, I know through my skills, through my sketch, how I want this set up, and how I've written this scene. An AI generation is gonna be like so random on some of this stuff. It's gonna be weird. So a lot of studios are being pissed with this direction. Particularly the Animation Guild. The Animation Guild is sort of the semi-big animators union. There is an animators union, but typically it depends on the company that you're working with. But it's the Animator Guild, TAG, as it said. It's been an active element in the industry for several years. And if Cartoon Network is going AI with their work, it pisses them off. And I mean, we'll play the little movie that they did here. So they've been laying people off so dramatically. It's by the thousands, the 100s, and it's monthly, and it's absurd. So where's the programming go? If they're not gonna do much but AI or a few random new shows where they keep airing, like they did the last 5 years with Teen Titans Go. If they're just gonna continuously air the same show, then where's the new stuff? The new stuff goes to the app, through the Mac, through, in Disney's case, Disney's Plus. say Netflix, but Netflix has now gone more focus on anime and less focus on children's cartoon, unless it's popular cartoons. And notably, Netflix is seeing actual profit that way. But when you take your stuff to apps, you're limiting an audience that is only on your app and may or may not be into what you have to air in the first place. And that's sort of what's killing them. There's already talks of having to do merger apps where it's gonna be like, oh well, Paramount and Netflix and let's say Universal all connect into one app now. Max, Hulu, and Disney Plus all connect in one. It's examples like that. We're gonna start seeing that more so towards the end of the year, into the next year. It's just the way that it's sort of the path to the future of how these companies work and how they're going to work in the future. Whether or not they'll maintain profits, I don't know. It's yet to be seen. But cable networks, cable networks have been on the way out for a couple years now. They've seen the door. People much rather would just get what they want to watch, and that's it. That's the way I watch content. I pay for about 4 services. Prime is kind of included with Prime, but I pay for Netflix, I pay for Crunchyroll, I pay for HiDive. I tried Hulu literally this weekend, did not like it, canceled my subscription immediately. I know they're pushing to have promotions with Hulu's anime lineup. Their anime lineup sucks. Most of the shows are available on either HiDive or Crunchyroll already. So most of the shows are already available on other platforms. Then you add on the few limited shows they have. Pretty much it's just Bleach. There's 1 or 2 new shows, but even Netflix, which releases maybe a new anime each week on top of, new series or movies each week these days. It's far more than what Hulu drops. If you really wanted to give Hulu time with animation, you probably could watch most of it in a week that they have on there. It's not repeated on other platforms. They may try and push and be like, oh, well, we have Rumble One Half. Well, every app, with the exception of Crunchyroll and HiDive, have Rumble One Half. YouTube has Rumble One Half. Okay? I don't need to pay YouTube. I say it on YouTube. But hey. The fact of the matter is, a lot of anime that's come out, it's pretty much going to be down to Crunchyroll, Netflix. I'd say HiDive, but HiDive is supposed to be shutting down because they're closing doors. Maybe Hulu can take over HiDive's lineup. I doubt it, because the only player right now that has the money to spend is Sony. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. It's Sony and Netflix. It's pretty much those two. And Sony owns Crunchyroll. And they see where they're getting their money. So they know if they're going to spend money on anime, they're going to make sure it goes on their platform. For other animated series, I hate to say it, it's gonna be the big players. But Disney, I don't know. Disney's in an odd position with their profits and their income each year. And this may be the first year that they produce a negative profit in a long time. And a lot of that comes down to, you can be like, oh, well, we have 2 successful movies. Well, you have multiple movies that you're making a year that are made through Disney or Disney operative brands, TV series on both your cable network and your app. You gotta maintain your app. And Disney's biggest money problem, which usually is their profit, the parks. They have made the parks so expensive that people can't afford them. They can't afford to keep going to the theme parks. And it's absurd. And I'd like to say Universal is not in the same boat, but they're kind of getting in that same boat. Warner Brothers / Discovery, they don't have that problem. They don't really own parks. Their money is made in movies and television, and connected items that are bought into the production. And by no means is this just a problem for Warner Brothers / Cartoon Network in this sense. It's all over. I mean, Disney's fired a ton of animators over the last year. The reason they're having a lot of disputes right now with Disney, a lot of technical issues with their science or their special effects, it's because they've been firing animators to try and save money. And it's just going to be a bleeding issue until they come to fix it. I didn't. Well. But basically, my own observation of what's going to happen over the next few years, and why Sony's going to be on the better end of this, is we're getting to a point in entertainment where movies aren't going to cut it anymore. TV shows, maybe, depending on what they're about, maybe reality TV will survive better because it's cheaper to produce. But you're honestly gonna see the rise of bigger productions in video games. And bigger names involved in video games. So you're gonna have Hollywood directors or Hollywood talent, actors and actresses, go into video games. Why? Because it's where the profit is. And I will not be surprised in 10 years you see huge names involved in video game. And I mean like the Spielbergs, the Robert Downey Jr.'s in video games, or stuff like that. Because you can create a long form of entertainment in a video game. And you can advertise in a video game. We've had advertisement in video games at this point. Is it beloved? No. But it's there. And I mean, it literally is a growing industry. The people who are playing video games are growing larger and larger with each generation. When I came out, or when I grew up, I had a Nintendo NES. And that was a big to-do system. Now, we have the PlayStation 5s, the Xbox X, the Switch, and we're getting more and more. I don't want to call it movie length because you're talking 80 to 100 hours of entertainment from a video game. So I would not be surprised if we start to see development go towards video games for most entertainment. That doesn't mean we're not going to see cartoon shows, we're not going to see stuff, but it's going to be rare, and it's going to be more expensive. Additionally, you'll see more indie projects. I mean, again, we already talked about Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss, both from VinziPop. Really big franchises. We have Digital Circus is big. You have all these sort of independent creators coming out and bringing stuff. But again, they're bringing in talent, huge talent, to do their shows. In the case of VinziPop, she's bringing in a lot of big name Broadway performers to do their projects. Some returning to their roots, because Keith David was in Hazbin Hotel. Keith David really made a name for himself with Gargoyles, which Disney really, if they want to make some money, they should reproduce or bring out a new season of Gargoyle as it was in the 90s. Will they do it? I doubt it. Because you're talking a very dark, brooding type show. And again, you're talking mature audiences. If Disney's willing to listen, then maybe. But there's serious doubts with what they're producing these days of what will be successful and won't be successful from Disney. It's sad, but it's true. I mean, if I did my own stuff, animated, technically, I have animated some of these characters in the early days of me drawing Demon Blade in particular, because Demon Blade started out as a production that I did for a school newspaper, college newspaper, but still newspaper nonetheless. And that was done back in the 90s. this iteration, much more adult, much more mature. I think this one's up here. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna come down to, we're gonna see talent go towards audiences, and some shows are going to be like, or channels are going to be like, we don't see the audience, so we're going to remove your show from the lineup, or we're not going to push through your concept. And sadly, let me pull up that one to talk about, because this was something people didn't see really that much. They came out through Screen Rant about a week ago. So we'll put this up here. Cartoon Network, we talked about, particularly Bookie Boo brought up, they're bringing back regular show Gumball Adventure Time. They wanted to bring back Ed, Edd n Eddy, but the creator's like, no, this would fail. Basically, as he's saying, it would repeat original ideas, lack the novelty and the appeal. Plus, a lot of the references made in Ed, Edd n Eddy could only be understood in the 80s and 90s generation, when it came out in 93. For people that were out and about, playing around in cul-de-sacs and doing stupid crap. How I lived, I don't know. I did stupid crap. I have scars because of that stupid crap. And it wouldn't work. They've tried it with Powerpuff Girls twice. They even tried a live-action Powerpuff Girls. It didn't work. Courage, I don't think they could get away with the scare of Courage anymore. And we said, Johnny, hell no. They would not be able to do Johnny these days. There'd be too much flack and bad media against a show like that these days. And that's the problem. Yeah, they're bringing back Adventure Time, which was a big success for Cartoon Network. But is it gonna be the same Adventure Time? Are we gonna see the world be like it was? Or be that same creative, long-form story in many sort of episodic episodes? That's what made Adventure Time so great. I gotta drink some water here. But yeah, I mean, you can bring back anything to a degree, but is it gonna be worth it? Leonardo, cheap viewers on, okay, I don't know what exactly that leads to, but I'm gonna guess some site we're not gonna go on. But yeah, it really comes down to, is the audience still going to be there? Is the creator going to be decent to continue creating? Gendar Tartakovsky. I'm trying to not mess up his name. Gendar Tartakovsky. Or Gennady Tartakovsky. His name's hard to say. Creator of Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack. And Clone Wars, the animated Clone Wars. He is now a decent successful film director. He does a couple of films. Most notably, he created the Hotel Transylvania. He created a few other animated projects, but I think he's also done some live action these days. The man is a creative genius as far as directing. He's always been that way. I mean, Dexter was one of the... I mean, it started the network. It was one of the first shows on Cartoon Network. And it showed. It was great comedy. I just having the sort of constant A character annoys B character, or is the target of B character, and whatnot, and making it a brother and sister. Brilliant. And making that brother be super smart while the sister being carefree and relatively annoying, but loving at the same time. It's so nice to see that created. Will we see that in current stuff? I don't know, because let's see if I can get any of the stuff here that they're coming out with. Again, they're like, okay, Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, some of the great stuff in 92, 94 when they came out with. Clone Wars, you know, again in the 90s, from Tarkovsky, again. Black Dynamite, I don't know who the hell Black Dynamite was. Johnny Bravo. Introduced many to Japanese anime, yes. Cartoon Network brought many people to Dragon Ball, to Sailor Moon, even though both of those aired on local television beforehand. They brought us Yu Yu Hakusho. They helped rebirth One Piece. They brought Naruto over. I mean, you had Toonami that went to Adult Swim, that became Toonami again. It brought back Family Guy. It brought back Futurama. Shows that were canceled, but found an audience through, you know, syndication. Even if their syndication was very short in the case of Family Guy in particular, because Family Guy only had 3 seasons, technically 2.5 seasons, before it got renewed for content. But the problem is again, Cartoon Network is going way too corporate. It's not being very imaginative in bringing in new audiences. They're kind of being like, well, we know Batman sells, so we'll do a show about Batman. But we need to attract it to younger audiences, so we'll make it for a Batman for younger kids. And what do young kids like? Vehicles. Yes. So we'll make a show around the Batmobile. I mean, who came up with that idea? And that's not me being hyperbole. That's an actual show. I like Batman, particularly animated series that I grew up with. But I'm not gonna sit there, even if I was a small child, I wouldn't sit there and watch a show about a car. I didn't like it when they pitched that kind of stuff as a child. Now, when I grew up, it was the 80s. And we got the cool stuff. We got Transformers, we got He-Man, we got G.I. Joe, we got a bunch of new Saturday morning cartoons and re-releases of old stuff that was good. So we lived the Saturday morning. You woke up for Saturday morning to watch as much as you could before it got over to infomercials and my face that I remember most, championship putt-putt. I mean, not that this miniature golf, but I love miniature golf, but I'm not gonna watch a bunch of fat old guys putt away on putt-putt courses when I can go and play the game myself and enjoy it. But the Discovery Channel, I mean, I'm trying to see if I can get this lower. Yeah. Discovery Warner is killing their brand. And a lot of it is the company's focusing on reboots of old IP, and whether or not they can capture that magic again is doubtful, because reboots are really rare to succeed. I mean, really rare. It's not like sequels to a movie where you're like, oh, well, we're going to continue the story. No. It's a rebranding, or a remake, a retelling of the story. I'm trying to think of one that succeeded, and the only one that comes to mind is My Little Pony Friendship of Magic. That was a well done reboot of MLP. I mean, the 2000s remake of He-Man and Thundercats were decent. But the attempts to remake them since have been horrible. They don't have the life. They don't focus on the story. They focus on, oh, remember this character? Here's this character. Oh, we reimagined this character to do this. And it's like, if you're living off of pure nostalgia, it's not gonna work. If you bring in something new and try to transform the project, it may work. May. It's very rare. But, I mean, how many versions of Batman have we gone through? I hate to diss Batman, but, I mean, there's what, 5 or 6 in the last 30 years? 40 years? Maybe even more than that. I could be wrong with that. I mean, and that's not including the movie franchise. The movie franchise, we've been through the 90s Batman, the 2000s Batman, which was the Christian Bale. Then we got the Ben Affleck Batman. Then we got the, what was it? I forget the guy's name, but he played Edward in Twilight, and his version of Batman. I think we're getting another version coming out soon. It's just like, you just keep retelling and remaking the story, trying to beat it over audiences to keep milking that nostalgia. Will it work? Maybe, maybe not. I'm using a current example. X-Men 97. Disney did great on X-Men 97. Why? Because they went to the stories that were told in the comics in the 80s and 90s, when X-Men was at its peak. they told stories that they knew succeeded but haven't been told on television or in movies with the X-Men. Will we see that in the movie franchise when it comes out? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. The way they've handled Marvel, it's disgraceful. I think the only reason people have hope for Deadpool is because Ryan Reynolds is involved, and Ryan loved the franchise. He's the reason there was Deadpool movies, because he's like, oh well, you know, I love the smartass merc with a mouth, and he shows it. He put together good movies, and I applaud. Ryan Reynolds is one of the few Hollywood actors that puts together stuff that he feels will succeed. And give or take, there are misses and there are hits. Deadpool was a right idea. I mean, what was the imaginary one that he brought out, that he pushed promotions through while he was doing Mint Mobile ads, which he owns? It, or whatever. It, but not to confuse it with Stephen King's It. I haven't watched it, but I haven't heard anything stupendous about that movie. So Ryan didn't succeed as well with that show or film. I think it also didn't help what platform it was on. It was not just movies, but they brought it over to Paramount, I believe. And Paramount, the only thing that I know that succeeds at Paramount is some of the Star Trek fans that are still into Star Trek, and South Park. South Park is their big moneymaker. But again, South Park's been around since Clinton was in office. So you're talking they started, I think, 96. The movie came out in, I think, 99 or so, right before Clinton got out of office. But they succeed. And the reason they succeed is, despite all these years, Matt and Trey Parker, they still handle the show. They still write the show. They're still most of the voices in the show. And they still produce it the way they've always have. And that helps keep not only the nostalgia factor, but keep that audience. It keeps retention as long as the show is good, which they've succeeded so far. They've had a few lackluster seasons, but overall, people still love and enjoy South Park. So, every word that I sing, every note that I hit, it's my only way out, my chance to finally quit. Will we see, something new happen, something new come about? Yes, absolutely. But I think a lot of people are getting tired of, in general. I mean, I hate to say it, but there've been, 3 successful films, and we're in July of this year. Most of the other films have lost money. I mean, and it's not like, it's making some money. No, you have like 10 million sales worldwide on these movies. And then occasionally you'll get something like Inside Out, where it's like millions upon millions into billions, which Inside Out, as of this past weekend, crossed the billions threshold. So Disney had the success there. Pixar needed it because Pixar had been hurting on the titles they've been releasing over the last few times because they weren't something audiences wanted to see. And it's that truth. You need to bring in an audience, and that audience needs to be willing to watch whatever you're putting together. And a lot of Disney films and Pixar films have been just misses since the pandemic, at least. And the same goes for TV shows. I mean, when was the last time or the last show that you remember going around and hearing lots of people talk about? When I grew up, you had the quote unquote water cooler shows. Seinfeld being one of them, where it'd be like, oh well, this show is so beloved, everybody's going to sit there and chat about it during their time. And at my job, it'd be the copier. I mean, that's where we do mostly our chat, either there or when we're doing something else. And we'll talk about shows or movies. I mean, we did a review last night on the Inside Movies Galore podcast. I was a special guest. We talked about the movie Barefoot Gen. Now, what I'll say here, if you're gonna go check out Barefoot Gen, be very prepared. That movie is about the dropping of the bomb of Hiroshima and the actual events of the actual story writer of Barefoot Gen, his actual life events that he survived through. And it looks cutesy and happy until you get to the bomb drop and you have bodies being ripped apart and decaying. It's not an easy movie to watch. We did a lot of comparison with Grave of the Fireflies from Ghibli, but Grave of the Fireflies didn't cover the bomb as much. It was more about the starvation of war, the orphans of war. This was more about actual victims of the bomb. Not something easy on the stomach. So if you're gonna go and find it, you can find it on a lot of sites. But be prepared. It is not an easy movie to watch. And it's meant not to be an easy movie to watch. It's meant to be disturbing and educational. That was the point of the film. Cut that. And I mean, tomorrow night, I'm going to be on Anime Anticlimax on a regular monthly. We kind of been delayed. We're going to be talking about the anime Harengu. Harengu is very cartoon-like, but still has an overall story. Uh, I'll make my points of whether or not I like that story tomorrow night. But there are points I laughed. I mean, it's meant to be a comedy series, and so there are comedy elements in the show, lots of. Um, are some of them annoying? Yes. Could some of them be better, well written? Yes. But at the same time, it tells a cohesive story. So I can't fault it for doing something different. I'm gonna move the arm a little bit on Tetsu because they're supposed to be going into a locker in this panel. Let's draw their mouth a little bit and chin a little better. Of course, this is their face. Side of the face is scarred. Doesn't gotta do the scars. Alright, let's bring them out a little bit better in the drawing. But, yeah, I mean, it's sad to see Cartoon Network, or even any of the companies that I grew up with, die out. And while, yes, the network is not closing off yet, it literally is a matter of about a decade that the television version of the network is going to be still airing. Unless something changes. I don't expect it to keep going on about as it's been for the last 5. Because when I knew Cartoon Network was in trouble was when they went live action. And I think a lot of people agree. They started hosting live action game shows and series, and it's like, why? You're literally the Cartoon Network. Why are we having live action when your title is Cartoon Network? I mean, I understand on Nickelodeon or on Disney, even Disney XD, which was supposed to be their more animated shows, and having live action, because it wasn't branded that way. It wasn't branded, hey, this is a live action programming show, or this is purely animated programming. But when you name yourself Cartoon Network and you put live action on there, you're hurting yourself. Now, I mean, I talked about it. I talked about Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Space Ghost Coast to Coast was live interviews, but had a animated host, which was brilliant and funny in some. And it helped with the brilliant script writing to cover it. The fact that you knew going into an episode that they'd have a guest, but they'd make fun of the guest for about 3 minutes, and then they would just go on a completely random tangent. But I mean, that's what the show was. I mean, it was meant to be comedic. And would I like to see the show back? Maybe. I think the voice actor of Space Ghost is still alive. I think George, I forget his last name, is still alive. I know the voice of Zorak, the voice of Brack, the voice of Moltar. They're dead. Those voice actors are dead because they'd have to get new people to do it, which is not unheard of. Other Adult Swim shows I remember that I really liked: Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. Brilliant show and comedy, and it did the same thing that Space Ghost. It took classic cartoon, reanimated it into a modern, silly story with a silly environment, which was a court show, a TV court show, and would just be off the wall humor. I mean, still to this day, I laugh at, hey, you got the thing? It was a hilarious bit. But I mean, I will still laugh at Johnny Bravo going, I mean, it's I'm trying. Let's try this way. One of the cartoons that succeeded internationally for years, and when I was going to college and studying animation and whatnot, we learned Bugs Bunny cartoons, Wile E. Coyote, Tom and Jerry were more recognizable than Mickey Mouse. And in some cases, more recognizable than Coca-Cola. The reason being is a lot of their cartoons needed no translation. They didn't need to be translated. People understood. Chase mouse. And cat, you have antics around that are slapstick humor. Slapstick humor is widely understandable versus intellectual humor. It's why the Stooges were well regarded above the Marx Brothers, who were doing more intellectual. People remember the Stooges far greater. Why? Slapstick. It is very easy to be like, oh, we see a person get hit over the head with a funny noise by a block of wood. And they play it off with a silly reaction. It's understandable. You don't need somebody to be like, oh, well, this is how the joke. No. I understand. Pain can sometimes be funny. Having shows that try to be way smarter than they should would be harder to translate. I would like to know how shows that I would love, stuff like Gravity Falls. I'd love to know how Gravity Falls has done internationally. It's well beloved by the United States audience, but internationally, especially countries that don't speak English, how did the show do? Did it succeed? Did it get lost in translation? And we can't think of shows purely, most content these days, we can't think of content purely as just this area, this part of the world. In the case of America, Demon Blade, my own comic series, I have a larger audience internationally with the comic than I do domestically at times. I see a lot more people be like from Japan or Korea or Indonesia reading the comic and enjoying the comic. I haven't really looked at the numbers with Witchin yet, because Witchin's still fairly new. We're going into the first year soon, but I kind of want to wait until then to start seeing how it's doing with other audiences. Demon Blade, on the other hand, I've been doing Demon Blade, this version of Demon Blade, since 2015. So we're almost going on 10 years of doing this comic. And before then, I had the 24 issues rush of 2013-2014 that a lot of people saw the latter half, issues 13 through 24, and not issues 1 through 12, which is part of the reason why we redid the series. We were being moved off of Tapas, which was a comic site that became Ink Blazers. Well, I mean, not Tapas. We were on Ink Blazers, which became Tapas. But in the changeover, they dropped the back history of Demon Blade. Because we were decently successful on Ink Blazers. I was making money off of Ink Blazers as a site. But then, like I said, they switched over to Tapas, and Tapas kind of screwed me over, and I had to retell the story. Because a lot of the back issues, a lot of the stuff I had previously made, I would have to redraw anyway. And it's like, well, if I'm going to redraw it, let me retell it in a way that has a unique look and has a unique pattern and tells more of the story. So that's where Demon Blade came in. 2015 version came out. But I mean, let me see if I can show. Well, let's see. It's gonna be harder. No, well, I can do it. I can do it, I guess. Let me try and pull it up on my PC version of I need to get to the folder first. Let's see. Alright. Let me go in the older files. Those are HTML. Chapters. Yeah. So, I've spoken this about before. In 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, I released Zero Chapter on a lot of sites, particularly Comixology, on there. And let me switch the window I'm using to show you what I mean. If I can find my window. Where is it? Window. So I'm going to go to So, this was Zero chapter. I did this in 7 days. This whole issue, in 7 days, from writing to releasing to publication, in 7 days. And there were some changes. I mean, it was full color because I was just going to do it full color. And we just, some of the stuff is still the same way. Tetsu was a little different back then, but it's still Tetsu. Mai's still Mai. And this is technically the second version of Demon Blade. Let me see if I can find an older version. There should exist one. Well, I mean, let's go to the final book. Show you guys. Like I said, 2015. September 2015 was the last issue of the 2013 run of Demon Blade. So, I mean, we did the series for several versions. Let me see if I can pull up a notable page. I'm gonna just pull one off at random. Spring versus Xena. I did not like how painterly this was. This was me using a tablet. I couldn't see what I was drawing unless I looked at the screen. And trying to do it painterly, more painterly. Do I have an older comic pages? I mean, I kind of do. Yeah, early days of Tetsu. In the comic. Yeah, really jokey, more humorous comics. This was when I hand drew them. And you can see the stain on the older comic pages. A lot of them don't exist anymore. They've become too decrepit and old to hold on to. I do have a couple of them, but I had developed this story over years. And let's see here. Was that the... Yeah, this was when I introduced the new style. So right after... that's not the one it was. Right after I dropped 2015 version of Demon Blade, I had a lot of people be like, well, I couldn't find the old stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to design the comic in a way that it would be readable to audiences. I mean, here's a good example. This is not Demon Blade. This was another comic I tried to run. This is hand drawn. This is me in college. I hand drew this stuff regularly, and I would have pages upon pages of stuff to show off. And that's kind of the work that had to go through with the comic series. To, I mean, our more recent stuff, I can see pretty easily. Let me see here. Where's the older stuff? This one is older, okay. Let's see if I can find a notable page. Of course, this is spoilers, because if you're following the current version, you're not gonna know about certain things, like the moment that Tetsu and Kyle actually get together is in 24. It's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while. They're gonna be regularly showing it. And also, I mean, here, let me show something else that is a huge difference. I always talk about. I'm trying to show it on this side, so I'm gonna bring it over. All of this is stuff I've added to the desktop that I can't put on the mobile. There's a lot of stuff. If I go to the brushes, I mean, I can show off. Yeah, these are the effects brushes. I have. Hold on the wrong thing. I have effects brushes that I do in here that are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 categories of brushes that all have different effects. Some lightning here that I built up that the mobile kind of restricts me. And I'm kind of right now restricted to using the mobile to draw out things, and then I have to continue to put details into a comic. And I'll use Witchin as an example. This background here behind Abigail, or the background behind Ida here, the adding of the Wands logo over on the building, I had to do in the desktop version because I can't do it in the mobile to get it to look right. So, yeah, you can see the Wands logo over here and whatnot. It infuriates me. We are gonna go to a regular tablet in the near future, I hope. That being said, yeah, right now it's pretty much we stick with the platform. But I mean, it's still me having to use techniques and whatnot that I've learned over the years to tell a story. I would write the stories. Like I said, I have 79, I think, chapters of Demon Blade written. And it's not ended. It's going, but it's getting to the end of Demon Blade. Whether or not will I have the chance to draw a 79? Probably not. Probably not. Not unless I become far more successful and can dedicate my time. Let me see my scripts. 75. Technically 77. Because there's one that didn't get numbered. But there's 75. Chapters. I don't do that with Witchin. Witchin, the story is pretty much outlined. I draw it, and the script is written. Characters that, like, we introduced Sydney recently in the pages that dropped. I did not plan Sydney. It wasn't until I was like, well, I'm gonna have to give them this theme where Ida gets technology. And on the spur, it's like, what if this was a lesson in flirting that Abigail tries to get Ida to learn? Because Abigail loves to mess with Ida that way. So that's what it ended up becoming. And you had Sydney who becomes this obsessed fangirl of Ida by the end of that current show, which is literally dropped the last few weeks. And people have enjoyed it. But it literally was a spur of the moment. She was never planned in the comic. Other characters that I've mentioned, stuff like Callie, who's eventually will show up, who's Ida's stylist, self-appointed stylist. She'll appear. And of course, Rylan will appear, which is Ida's friend from which school, the academy that they learned from. I mean, this is a page from chapter 5. I pulled this up mainly so I could use the hallway and re-reference the same hallway because it's the school, it's the inside of the hallway, it's how I wanted the hallways to look. So that's why that was brought up. Again, the reference was done from chapter 5. I made the school then. There's also a reference for in Witchin' Wands, as well as the dormitory. There's a reference for in Demon Blade, the Yushi household, the school, and I think I did one last chapter for Turtle Pond because they're reoccurring places I wanted to have a reference to pull up for each of them. So when I go to draw them, I know what to pull up. So I'm be like, oh, okay, this is how the school, and the school, I have two in Demon Blade. I have a reference to the football stadium, and I have a reference to the school in general. And part of that is we're in a chapter that involves a stadium. I already pulled up the stadium at the beginning of this chapter for an establishment. I mean, that's literally what you do is you create an establishment with the imagery. Yawning a bit. But, I mean, overall, would I let AI work on Demon Blade? In a way, I have. I mean, we have Demon Blade songs that play on here. They're based off of script and based off of moments from the story. Same with Witchin'. We have a few songs with Witchin'. Would I have it draw the series? No. If there's something I can do, I won't resort to AI. But when we're talking something larger like Cartoon Network, or any of the industry big guys, it's disturbing. I mean, this was a discussion to talk about, what was it? The Civil War movie that came out earlier this year. They did AI posters when they're a big movie company. It's like, no, dude. Pay artists. I mean, if it's an indie group, I mean, I literally was talking with some of the people in Movies Galore when we were on last night. before we were on, we were talking about some of their individual indie projects and what they would put out there. So a lot of them are doing independent films, and they're like, "Oh, well, I used AI for this." It's like, that's fine. You have a budget of like $500. I can understand that. But Hollywood has like a budget of multi-billions or millions in a film. No, don't be using AI. Get actual talent. Make sure that they're producing something, because computers can assume, and they're gonna get better. AI is gonna get better. I have no doubt about that. But to tell a story, to convey emotion, these are things that AI are going to be harder to accomplish, particularly in stories and whatnot. Which is why I'm less worried about AI with comics. And a little bit the same with the animation. But it is what is causing the downfall of these companies. And will destroy Cartoon Network if they don't change their ways. So if we don't see Cartoon Network seriously rethink programming and how production is done, what they air, when they air, they're gonna die. They're gonna die. And it's been on the wall for almost 10 years now. And the further and further we get into streaming, the further and further we get into independent content becoming successful, the less people are going to give a damn about Cartoon Network or Disney or any of these others. Because we're literally going to get to the point where you're going to be able to individualize films, movies, or video games. And AI will help create that. Now, how effective those will be is up to debate, and how creative they will be. Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, they're going to be creative deployed or depleted, because they're not actual thought going into it. We've explained this about with creating characters before. You need sort of to give flesh to the story, to the characters that you want to tell in the story. I mean, we will see AI take steps up. But until I can get a believable, well put together AI story, I'm not going to buy that it's better to do AI over a human for creation. And I will give credit to, we've been poo-pooing them a bit with Max, Discovery, whatever they call themselves now. David Zaslav has taken a lot of crap for what he's done with the companies he has. He still managed to make it more profitable than whatever the hell Disney's been putting together. And a lot of what Disney's putting together is rotting itself out. You just have to look at audience scores for The Acolyte, or audience scores for what was the last Disney movie that wasn't Inside Out. What is it then? The Marvels? No. Wish. Yeah, Wish. Wish was crap. Wish was total crap. Disney should be nothing ashamed. The people behind that film need to be fired, not the animators. And the reason I say not the animators is because the animators were killed and rushed in that film. But the directors, the writers, the producers, those people need to be fired. Those are the people that need to be fired. But Disney isn't firing those people. They're firing the lower people. And I'm afraid Cartoon Network is doing the same. They're firing the lower talent, the potential future talent down the line. I mean, I mentioned the name Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane, who created Family Guy, was an animation director for Genndy Tartakovsky in Dexter's Lab. That's where he got his start. He then made the pilot that would become Family Guy, that aired on Cartoon. Didn't succeed as well. But then he created Family Guy. It was, the first 3 seasons were comedic genius. In a sense, it was well put together show. After that, I mean, I struggle to say, yeah, there's some episodes that are great, but I don't know if I could say a season of Family Guy was great after it came back, but it wouldn't have come back. It wouldn't have even been created if it weren't for the talent to have trained under greater talent beforehand. And that's where you learn. I mean, it really comes down to that. I mean, what I'm doing now, I've been doing since I was freaking in high school. I drew comics. And while I went to one of the top art schools in the nation, and studied animation, I couldn't study cartooning because cartooning wasn't a course. I had to train myself how to draw it. And when I went, anime was a joke to people. I literally had an art teacher insult me for saying, hey, you really should check out anime. This was 1998, when most of the bigger name anime hasn't aired yet. I think Dragon Ball didn't start airing until 99 in the US. And Sailor Moon around the same time. So they were about 5 years behind the well, no. Sailor Moon aired in 96 and Dragon Ball aired about 95, 96, around the same time. It was the ocean dub of Dragon Ball, but it was Dragon Ball Z. I had to establish, yes, Dragon Ball Z. So in the early episodes before Funimation had even become a thing. And they didn't get an audience until 97, 98, when Cartoon Network got them and aired them. Sailor Moon had a cult audience. I was watching it when I was in high school my senior year. It was on at 5:30 in the morning. I had to get up early for school anyway because I'd catch the bus about 7. So I got my ass up half an hour earlier to watch Sailor Moon. And I loved it, even though it was the horrible butchering of DIC. It was still a well put together show. It was the first time that I remember outside of Transformers the movie to see an animated character die. I was like blown away with that. I was like, holy crap. And then when I was in college, once it started airing on Cartoon Network, we had this sort of large screen area that they would show television and run television on in college. And there was 2 things you'd regularly see on television there. One was Jerry Springer, because it was the peak of Jerry Springer. But come 4 o'clock, it was Sailor Moon. It was Dragon Ball. Dude, you had people fight over the controller to put that stuff on television. The college was loving it. But when I would go and see teachers, they'd be like, what? This isn't any good. There was one teacher who saw the movies Akira and Ghost in the Shell. And was like, okay, anime is not something to laugh at. It is something that is going to change the style of animation. And it did. And it did. I actually say, while Dragon Ball is well beloved, Sailor Moon did more effect on the animation industry. I mean, hell, Steven Universe is flat off a Sailor Moon clone. There's no doubt. There's Sailor Moon references in Adventure Time. Yeah, you have occasional Dragon Ball Z reference here and there, but Sailor Moon had the bigger impact because it was a story. Dragon Ball Z, yeah, it had a story, but at the time, when people were in college around me, around the 2000s change, the most we got out of Dragon Ball was the start of the Frieza saga. We didn't even get the end of Frieza for several years. We ended, I think it ended right around after the Ginyu showed up. I think that's where it ended. It would continuously go back to the Garlic Jr. saga, which is ugh. But then we started getting things like Gundam Wing, Yu Yu Hakusho, stuff that told stories and helped develop stories. And then we got like stuff that was influenced by anime, such as Teen Titans. Megas XLR, one of my favorite canceled Cartoon Network shows. Great show. Only like 7 or 8 episodes. It's so disappointing that they only had that many. It was an awesome show. Ben 10 was based off of anime. I mean, Pokemon, for God's sake. 96 is when Pokemon hit the United States. Think about everything that has been influenced by Pokemon. Hell, South Park made a reference to Pokemon. Back in the 1998, I think. It was like their 2nd season. So, there's always going to be stuff to influence things. But if you remake and remake and remake, you lose bits and pieces of that show. And you lose it even more if you leave it up to AI. So, what's killing Cartoon Network? New ways of developing shows without people. That's what's killing Cartoon Network. That's why there's the hashtag RIP Cartoon Network. Because they're taking people out of creation. And you can't eliminate the human factor and expect it to be good. So, I hope this was an interesting stream. We've had quite a lot of people join in tonight. I do want to thank Pokeboo, who started us out here. Leah Shea, Yoshi joining in. Demon Queen Raiju BT over on Twitch. I'll even give a shout out of Leonardo Lol 17, even though I don't know what they sent link-wise, and I'm kind of scared to click on it because I don't want to infect my computer as it is. But I thank you all for joining in. I hope we covered the subject well enough. If you have an opinion or want to add something and you're watching this later, leave it in the comments. Absolutely, leave the comments. I'll be happy to reply. If you want something drawn on Dining and Doodles, I don't know if I'm going to do Dining and Doodles this weekend. We didn't do it Saturday because, well, I fell asleep again. I got really tired and overslept. Yeah, I was very, very sleepy this past weekend. But, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do a stream on Saturday, particularly because it's my birthday. And I don't know if I'm going to do a stream on Saturday. So, we'll do a stream Friday. We'll continue with Final Fantasy VII because a lot of people liked it. But we may not do a stream Saturday. I might do one. It'll depend on how I feel. But if you have something you want drawn, particularly for Dining and Doodles, which is our request show, leave a comment. Message us on any of the mobile devices. Hashtag Embry Arts will pull me up immediately. I'll be able to find it that way. And Demon Blade and Witchin will be off for one more week. I know I haven't dropped anything on Patreon sponsors yet. I literally have 4 pages of Witchin and maybe 4 pages of Demon Blade to letter. I've been trying to finish up some pages of Witchin to get them to be covered. But we'll be dropping them soon. And we'll be live tomorrow night talking about Hare and Goo on Anime Anticlimax. Anime Anticlimax. Which is on Captain Centers of the World YouTube channel. You can go in and check us out there. Until then, go out there and be the best you that you can be. Be better than Cartoon Network. Create! Go create! And as always, have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week, and a wonderful year. Good night, everybody.
Lights go down streams and thanks for time we spent. Laughs and smiles all through night. With you, it feels just right. Signing off. Don't forget like, comment, song. Signing off. Ring the bell and show some out. Good vibes, share the fun, right? filled with pride. See you